You know, sometimes the stories that stick with you, the ones that make you lean in closer, aren't the big, flashy ones with all the special effects. It's the ones that are held together by nothing more than a real life recording of somebody just having a really, truly bad night. It's the sound of a regular guy in a regular truck dealing with something that simply should not be there. And when the whole thing is over, and you look at the paper trail left behind, the official 911 audio, the police summaries, the statements from the local sheriff, that's when the quiet dread really sets in. Because there are facts that just refuse to line up with any comfortable explanation. It forces you to look at a dark stretch of pavement in North Carolina and wonder exactly what kind of reality you're living in. Because whatever happened out there on Nancy 2010, it definitely happened to one particular driver, and it absolutely got documented. Now look, you spend enough time researching these things and you develop a kind of armor against the easy answer, against the quick dismissal. But this one, this Pender County call, it bypasses all that logic and just lands right in your gut. It's a story told entirely in the man's escalating terror, and you can't look away from it. Let's talk about it. So this one was actually suggested by one of you guys. So if you have a story that you want to be told, make sure to go to the bio and check the email and send me a DM right there. Also, make sure to like this video and don't forget to subscribe so you can join our community and spread the love. The driver, and he's never been officially named, which makes the whole thing feel more intimate, like it could have been any of us, was pushing his pickup truck north on Nancy 210 just before 11 o'clock on the night of July 31st, 2001. It's a road that winds its way through Pender County, North Carolina. And if you've ever driven in the dark, you know it's not the kind of place you expect anything beyond the usual nocturnal life of the rural South. The quiet pines, the cypress ponds, the occasional darting deer that catches your high beams for a second and then just vanishes. This isn't really a highway, it's a long dark ribbon of asphalt cutting through low country that's historically heavy because it's sitting right near the Moores Creek National Battlefield. A place where, let's just say, the ground has seen its share of violence and strange history. His emotional temperature, as heard in the initial moments of the recording, was totally calm, just the low-key frustration of a man who'd seen something he had to report but wasn't entirely certain how to describe it to a dispatcher. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't frantic, he was just about making a necessary call about a weird imbalance he'd witnessed on the side of the road. The kind of good citizen duty that anyone would perform. The driver was traveling along, nothing particular unusual about his trip, when the bright glare of his headlights caught a figure standing right on the edge of the road, close enough to the white line that he was clearly in danger, or maybe a danger to him. What immediately struck him was the figure's sheer paleness, a kind of sickly white that stood out against the dark wall of the surrounding woods. Seemed completely wrong under the harsh artificiality of his truck lights. As he drove closer, he reported seeing what he first took to be a man, possibly injured because the figure appeared to have blood smeared across his face or head, which naturally made him concerned that he was passing an accident victim who needed immediate medical attention. He registers the detail quickly as he passed, the strange dark complexion, the apparent injury, the fact that this person or thing was simply standing there, motionless on a lonely road late at night, and he knew instantly that he couldn't simply ignore it and keep driving. He was past the figure now, accelerating back up to speed as he reached for his phone, and the official report to the Pender County 911 operator was simple and factual.
Pender County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm driving on 210. I just crossed the Black River and I thought I saw a guy standing on the side of the road bleeding.
Which is a statement that carries its own inherent tension, but remains grounded in the completely normal duty of a concerned motorist. That brief, quiet description, delivered with a calm North Carolina drawl, is where the story actually begins, marking the precise moment he drove away from the strange roadside figure and began his dialogue with the authorities who were about to document the terrifying escalation of his night. He had no idea, of course, that the unsettling sight he had just passed was not in fact the end of the encounter, but was instead the deliberate starting point for something that had now decided to actively engage with him. The documented timeline places first contact at approximately 11 p.m. on that Saturday night in July. And it is a detail that matters because the later it gets, the more desolate that stretch of NC-210 becomes, and the less likely it is that the driver's testimony could be influenced by anyone else. He was clearly moving north, headed away from the Curie area, a relatively small community that sits at the intersection with US 421, and the Pender County Sheriff's Department officially confirmed that a call was indeed logged at the time, reporting a possibly injured, bleeding man near the roadside. The details he was relaying were highly specific, giving the dispatcher the mile markers he had passed, the nearest recognizable intersection, and maintaining his observation that whatever he had just seen looked profoundly wrong, despite his initial charitable assumption that it was merely an accident victim. The 911 audio documents the call lasting a total of 11 minutes, a duration that becomes increasingly important because it shows the sheer length of time this driver was under pressure, and it proves he remained cooperative until deputies were actually on the scene to speak with him. He was still giving the operator his exact location, tracking his progress down the dark hallway as he confirmed that he had turned around and was trying to return to the location, hoping to get a clearer look at the figure from a safe distance before deputies arrived. He was using the standard human language of someone simply trying to help, saying something along the lines of, "He looked really pale, ma'am, like sickly pale, and he had blood on his head," trying to communicate the disturbable visual imbalance of the figure without sounding unhinged. The Pender County Sheriff's Office, upon receiving the report of a potentially injured person on a dark road, naturally dispatched 2 deputies immediately, activating the established protocol for a welfare check, which is the kind of professional response that underscores the grounded procedural nature of this entire documented event. While the driver was continuing to describe the figure, he got into the truly specific, disturbing details. The figure was abnormally tall and thin, with a face that seemed to have these shallow, sunken eyes and a nose that appeared almost absent. That level of precise, disturbing description from an otherwise calm witness is exactly the kind of detail that forces you to take the account seriously, moving it far beyond a simple misidentification of a shadow or a coat hanging on a fence post. And here's where it gets strange. The driver, now headed back toward the Curie area, was maybe a mile past where he first saw the figure. Still driving and still talking to the dispatcher, his voice focused on providing the best duration for the arriving law enforcement. The context, the entire setup of the call, establishes a time-dependent pressure on the driver. He's alone, he's mobile, and he's actively moving back toward the place where he saw a genuinely disturbing figure, all while relying entirely on the voice of the dispatcher to anchor him back to reality. The documented facts are that the deputies are en route, he is still moving, and the 11-minute clock on this verifiable recorded exchange is continuing to tick toward the one moment that will break the driver's calm completely, shifting the call from a simple welfare check into something truly and profoundly terrifying. So the driver had a decision to make in those critical moments, a genuine conflict between his immediate instinctive fear of what he had just seen and the logic that told him he couldn't leave a potentially bleeding person abandoned on a highway shoulder. His initial fear was palpable, a quiet unease heard in his voice as he tried to reconcile his initial impression of an injured man with the strangely stretched appearance that his mind was struggling to process as entirely human. That logical impulse to assist, however, won out over the chilling feeling in his gut, confirming to the dispatcher that he was turning around to go back and check on the person, or at least confirm the exact location for the deputies who were speeding towards him. His choice to keep the 911 line open, despite being the one actively putting himself back in danger, is perhaps the most crucial detail of the entire event, because it ensured that everything that followed, the noises, the explanations, the sheer paralyzing panic, was recorded, timestamped, and filed as official evidence by Pender County. He was a good citizen making a responsible choice, but that very choice placed him on a collision course with whatever was lurking out there near Moore's Creek vicinity, confirming that the line between simple concern and complete terror can be crossed in an instant on a dark southern road. He was applying the brakes now, slowing his pickup as he approached the area where he had registered the pale figure, intending to pull over and look again, ready to tell the dispatcher exactly what he saw, completely unaware that the figure was no longer waiting by the road. He brought the truck to a complete stop, just idling there in the middle of the dark road, his focus entirely out of the driver's side window and on the empty stretch of roadside that he had now realized held no figure, bleeding or otherwise. He was about to tell the dispatcher that he must have been mistaken, that the figure had moved, or maybe simply misjudged the entire situation in the dark, and that's when his conscious logical decision to stop the vehicle became the physical catalyst for the nightmare. He had anchored himself to the spot, making his track a stationary target, and he was about to be proven profoundly and definitely wrong about the empty nature of the darkness that surrounded him on all sides. The shift in the 911 audio is immediate and utterly gut-wrenching, moving from the driver's focused concentration to a sudden, violent physical event that snaps his mind completely. There is a distinct verifiable sound on the recording, a heavy unsettling thump that echoes through the phone line, a noise that sounds exactly like something heavy and dense had just landed in the back of his pickup truck. His reaction is not a scream of fear, but a choked up primal yell of shock and disbelief, a noise of pure physical violation that immediately follows the impact that he had just felt reverberate through the frame of his truck.
Kind of in the middle of the woods at the moment.
Yes, sir. I'm familiar with the area.
What the?
What was that, sir?
That's not human! That's not human!
Sir, are you okay, sir?
There's something in the back of my truck!
He slammed on the accelerator immediately, his good citizen logic completely overriding itself in a panic that was justified by the solid, unmistakable reality of the impact he had just felt reverberate to the frame of his truck. He yelled into his phone, his voice ragged, "It's in my truck! Something just jumped in the back of my truck!" And that is the moment when the recorded amount passes entirely out of the realm of human explanation, transforming a simple police call into something profoundly different. His subsequent explanations are the short, sharp, definite statements of a man whose reality has just been shattered because he screamed those three terrible recorded words at the dispatcher, "It's not human," followed by an immediate, terrifying repetition of the same fact. The description that followed, given during the driver's pure flight response, indicates that the creature, whatever it was not secured in the bed of the truck for long as he sped away, because he stated that whatever was back there was subsequently thrown out onto the asphalt. As he glanced into his rearview mirror, he saw the pale, terrifying figure stand back up in the middle of the highway, a gaunt, impossibly tall shape backlit by the red glow of his brake lights, a sight that confirmed his horrifying realization that what he had just dealt with was something unnatural. He claims that it was during this rapid acceleration and panic glance that the figure quickly rolled across his hood, a physical impossibility for a human being that cemented his terror and adds another layer of visceral detail to his documented account. Now, the narrative pressure shifts to the deputies who are finally approaching the general area, relying on the panicked, shouted directions from the driver who is fleeing the scene as fast as his truck will take him. The dispatcher is attempting to get him to calm down, to pull over and wait for the Pender County's officers, but his fears is overriding all sense of calm, his voice confirming for the authorities that he's absolutely terrified of what is now potentially behind him. They're closing in and they know something terrible had just happened, and they're moving towards a dark, empty stretch of road to investigate a possible assault, unaware that the physical evidence of the event is likely gone, having run back into the dark woods of the Moore's Creek area. When the Pender County deputies finally arrived at the location, they found a profoundly shaken but cooperative driver who was still holding the line open to 911. Although he was visibly rattled, he was determined to explain exactly what had just transpired in that darkness. The deputies conducted a thorough sweep of the area, utilizing their vehicle spotlights and flashlights to search the roadside, the adjacent woods, and the exact spot on the highway where the driver claimed the figure had landed and stood up, but they found absolutely nothing. What they did not find, there was no body, no blood, no evidence of a vehicle collision, no witnesses, no identifiable tracks, is precisely what gave this case its enduring, chilling quality, turning the event into an official documented mystery instead of a resolved police report. Pender County Sheriff Alan Cutler, in subsequent statements to the press that covered the bizarre call, confirmed the veracity of the 911 recording and acknowledged that the event was serious enough to be filed and investigating, suggesting that the driver's terror was not dismissed as just a simple hoax. The driver was not arrested for filing a false report, which is a key detail because it suggests the deputies found his demeanor and the details of the call credible enough to warrant the considerable state resources that were subsequently used to look into the matter. What exists publicly is the official 911 audio and the summaries of the initial police report, but no released photos of the scene or any physical evidence, leaving the only concrete proof of the event to be the sound of the driver's shattering scream and a distinct thump on the recording. This leaves the entire incident balanced perfectly on an unresolved edge, forcing you to choose between a comfortable assumption of mass hysteria or temporary delusion, or the verifiable official recording of a heavy, solid impact and a man screaming, "It's not human." The road itself remains a quiet, dark stretch of asphalt, waiting. So maybe the real mystery isn't what he saw, but the fact that he was sane enough to record it for the rest of us. Truth? Fiction? You decide. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed that one, I have another one prepared right here for you. I'm sure you're gonna love that as well. Until next time, keep the good vibes and spread the love. RPDC, signing out.